Smoke clings to the air, thick, bitter, suffocating. It rolls upward from burning naphtha pots and smoldering wood, stinging the eyes, choking the lungs. The pounding of horse hooves echoes off stone walls, sharp and relentless, blending with the restless whinnying of animals starving for grain. Then come the voices, harsh commands shouted in a foreign tongue. The crack of whips slices through the chaos. And then you see them. Hundreds of women. Their veils torn, their faces smeared with ash and tears, driven forward like livestock into the open square. Some are barely more than girls. They tremble as rough hands grab, inspect, divide. One soldier seizes a young woman by the arm and drags her toward his tent. She stumbles, crying out, but her voice disappears into the noise. Nearby, another group is separated, the daughters of nobles. They are handled differently, reserved, not spared, just claimed by higher-ranking men. Their fate isn't random, it's assigned. Around them, the conquerors laugh. Their eyes gleam, not with madness, but with expectation. Spoils of war. But this is only the beginning. What follows isn't chaos. It's something far more terrifying. It's a system. What you're about to hear involves enslavement and sexual violence against civilians, especially women. These events are recorded in historical chronicles, and they are deeply disturbing. If you need to step away, that's completely understandable. But if you stay, we're not here to sensationalize suffering. We're here to understand how it worked. Because this wasn't random brutality. This was a machine, an engine of empire, powered by terror, fueled by human lives treated as currency. In the spring of 1220, as Mongol forces surged into Central Asia, the city of Bukhara stood in their path, a jewel of the Silk Road, a center of learning, trade, and culture. And it would become something else, a proving ground. Genghis Khan, the self-declared scourge of God, didn't just conquer cities. He dismantled entire societies. Survivors weren't spared. They were repurposed, turned into tools for the next conquest. His sons, especially Tolui, carried out his orders with ruthless precision. Every victory wasn't an end. It was fuel for the next. The Khwarazmian Empire, ruled by Shah Muhammad, had triggered this storm through arrogance and betrayal. What happened in Bukhara mattered, because it became the blueprint. A pattern repeated again and again, across decades, across continents. It erased cultures and built the largest land empire the world had ever seen. But to understand how this machine worked, we have to go back. Long before flames touched Bukhara's walls, the seeds of destruction were planted far away, on the vast Mongolian steppe. Genghis Khan wasn't always Genghis Khan. He was born Temujin around 1162 into a harsh world of tribal warfare and shifting alliances. His father was poisoned by rivals. Temujin was left behind, an orphan, hunted, abandoned by his own people. He survived by adapting. At one point he was captured and enslaved, but he escaped. And slowly, through cunning, alliances, and sheer force of will, he rose. By 1206, he had united the Mongol tribes under one banner. They named him Genghis Khan, universal ruler. But his true power wasn't just military, it was structural. He built a system, one that rewarded loyalty over bloodline, one where merit determined status, and one where terror wasn't just a byproduct of war, it was a strategy. His army, roughly 100,000 strong, moved with terrifying speed. Mounted archers who could strike from distances their enemies couldn't match. They lived off the land, traveled light, and hit like lightning. Before a battle even began, Fear often did half the work. Then came the spark that would ignite everything. The Khwarazmian Empire stretched from the Caspian Sea to the Indus River, a wealthy, diverse region shaped by Persian, Turkish, and Arab influences. Its ruler, Shah Muhammad, saw the Mongols as nothing more than uncivilized barbarians. In 1218, a Mongol caravan arrived at the border city of Otrar. 450 merchants. They came for trade. Instead, they were accused of spying. The governor, Inalchuk, who also happened to be the Shah's uncle, seized their goods and had them all executed. Genghis Khan responded with diplomacy first. He sent envoys demanding justice. Shah Muhammad answered by beheading one envoy and humiliating the others by shaving their beards before sending them back. It was more than an insult. It was a declaration. "They have chosen war," Genghis Khan said, and war is exactly what came. Historians estimate that the invasion that followed may have killed millions. The exact numbers are debated, but the scale is undeniable. Genghis mobilized his forces, dividing them into coordinated wings. He took the central route himself, alongside his youngest son, Tolui, a commander in his 20s, already known for ruthless efficiency and brilliant strategy. Together, they crossed mountains, deserts, and frozen wastelands, surviving blizzards, enduring thirst, moving in ways that stunned even seasoned observers. Their first major target? Otrar. They besieged it for 5 months, and when it finally fell, Inalchuk was captured. His execution wasn't just punishment, it was a message. Molten silver was poured into his eyes and ears, a symbolic retribution for greed. The city was destroyed, its people either slaughtered or enslaved. And just like that, the pattern was set. Resist and be annihilated. Submit and be used. That was the core of the machine, and Bukhara was next. Shah Muhammad ran. As the Mongol advance tore through his empire, he abandoned city after city, leaving chaos behind him. Leadership fractured, defenses collapsed. His mother, Turkan Khatun, tried to rally what remained, but the machine had already begun its work. The Mongol army split into multiple forces, moving with terrifying coordination. Genghis Khan and Tolui drove straight toward the heartland, and ahead of them stood Bukhara, an ancient city, over 1,500 years old, a center of Islamic scholarship, its skyline pierced by towering minarets, its streets alive with merchants, scholars, artisans, markets filled with spices and silk, libraries overflowing with knowledge gathered from across the world. Nearly 300,000 people lived within its walls, and yet, beneath the surface, tension lingered. Shah Muhammad himself had once sacked the city, leaving scars that never fully healed. So when word spread of the Mongol approach, fear mixed with resentment. Then came the impossible. In early 1220, Genghis Khan made a move no one expected. He led his army across the Kizilkum Desert, a barren expanse believed to be impassable for large forces. But Mongol scouts had already mapped hidden wells. They knew the land. So when they appeared outside Bukhara, it was like ghosts materializing from nothing. The city's defenders, led by a Turkish general named Kokan, numbered around 20,000. They marched out to meet the invaders. It didn't last. Mongol archers struck fast, surrounding and cutting them down with precision. Thousands fell in moments. The survivors fled back behind the city walls. Inside, panic spread. For 3 days, the Mongols encircled Bukhara. Their camps stretched to the horizon. Siege engines rolled into position. Catapults hurled stones. Arrows darkened the sky. Kokan urged resistance, but the people were tired. tired of war, tired of rulers who brought destruction to their doorsteps. On February 10th, the gates opened. Genghis Khan rode in, victorious, Tolui at his side. The outer city surrendered, but the fight wasn't over. Kokon and a few hundred loyal defenders barricaded themselves inside the citadel, the inner fortress. They refused to yield. So the Mongols adapted. They turned the city's own people into weapons. Civilians were forced forward, driven to fill moats, to carry siege equipment, to climb walls under fire. Defenders inside the citadel were forced to strike down their own neighbors just to survive. It was psychological warfare at its most brutal. Then came the fire. Naphtha pots ignited. Flames spread rapidly through the wooden homes. Entire districts burned, smoke choking the sky. For 12 days, the siege dragged on. Then the citadel fell. Kokon fought to the end, but it made no difference. His forces were overwhelmed. Afterward, no male taller than the height of a whip's handle was spared. Historians estimate over 30,000 were killed, though the true number may never be known. And in the aftermath, the sorting began. Zara had grown up in Bukhara's golden world. Her father was a merchant who traded silk from China. Her days had been filled with poetry, quiet walks in gardens, dreams of marriage to a young scholar. A future shaped by learning, stability, beauty. All of that ended in a single moment. When the Mongols stormed the city, she hid with her family. But there was no escaping it. They were dragged into the open. She watched as the men, her father among them, were separated first, the able-bodied taken away, some to be executed, others to be forced into labor or used in future battles. Then the artisans. Skilled workers were pulled aside, valuable, too useful to kill. They would be sent east to serve the empire. Then the strong young men. They were conscripted into auxiliary units, forced to march ahead in future sieges, human shields, and then everyone else. Genghis Khan ordered the remaining population assembled in open fields outside the city. He and Tolui oversaw everything personally. This wasn't chaos. It was accounting. Plunder was divided by rank, and people were part of that plunder. Zara stood among the women, surrounded by fear and quiet sobbing. Guards watched closely. No one dared run. The chronicles described them as slender as cypress trees, a detail that wasn't poetic. It was selection criteria: youth, appearance, health. These determined fate. Many women were assaulted immediately. Violence used deliberately, not randomly. It broke resistance. It rewarded soldiers. It reinforced control. Others, like Zara, were assigned, given to officers, taken as concubines, turned into slaves, their lives no longer their own. This wasn't about desire. It was policy. A system designed to bind soldiers to conquest, rewarding them not just with gold, but with people, with power over others. Every act of violence fed the machine. Zara's world collapsed as she was pulled away toward Tolui's camp. Her past, her identity, reduced to an entry in the ledger of war. But even that wasn't the end, because the city itself still had a role to play. The Mongols believed in total control, so they burned what remained. Entire neighborhoods were set ablaze. Wooden structures collapsed into ash. The great library, centuries of knowledge, vanished in smoke. Only the stone minarets remained, standing over a dead city. Genghis Khan entered the Friday mosque, mistaking it at first for a palace. Inside, he made a statement. Horses were fed from chests that once held Qurans. Wine was brought. Captive performers were forced to sing. And from the pulpit, he addressed the people. O people, know that you have committed great sins. I am the punishment of God. It was more than arrogance. It was strategy. By framing himself as divine judgment, he stripped his enemies of hope. Resistance wasn't just dangerous, it was meaningless. And Bukhara was just the beginning. Because now the system would spread. The fall of Bukhara sent shockwaves across the empire. News traveled fast, faster than armies sometimes. And what people heard wasn't just that the Mongols had won, it was how they had won. Cities that resisted were erased. Cities that submitted were spared, at least partially. The message was clear, simple, and terrifyingly effective. Submit or disappear. Shah Muhammad, already in retreat, heard of Bukhara's fate and lost what little control he had left. His forces dissolved. Commanders abandoned posts. The empire began to fracture from within. Meanwhile, the Mongol machine kept moving. Tolui pressed forward, linking up with his father for the assault on Samarkand. There, the same patterns repeated: siege, surrender, sorting, destruction. But beyond Bukhara, the violence escalated even further. Cities like Merv and Nishapur would suffer on an even greater scale. Chronicles claim that in Merv alone, hundreds of thousands were killed. Some accounts say as many as 700,000. Whether exaggerated or not, the intent is undeniable. Entire populations wiped out. Pyramids of skulls raised as warnings. And always, the same system beneath it all. Women sorted, violated, enslaved, men killed, or repurposed into tools for the next conquest. From the outside, it looked like chaos. From within, it was organized. Tolui, executing his father's vision, didn't see this as cruelty for its own sake. It was efficiency. Rewards kept soldiers loyal. Terror reduced resistance. Fewer battles meant faster expansion. One captured Persian scribe, forced to document events, described it clearly. Reports flowed upward through the ranks. Decisions were recorded. Shares of plunder, including human captives, were distributed with precision. This wasn't a rampage. It was bureaucracy in motion. After Bukhara, entire villages were emptied. Survivors funneled into labor pools, skilled workers sent across the empire, families erased in a single generation. And yet, even within this destruction, something unexpected happened. Some of the enslaved artisans, potters, weavers, metalworkers, were transported east to Mongolia. There, far from their homes, they continued their craft. A potter's wheel turned again in Karakoram. Silk patterns from Bukhara reappeared in distant lands. Cultures blended, forced, fragmented, but still alive in small ways. But for most, there was no such continuation. There was only survival. Zara, now part of Tolui's moving camp, saw the system from the inside. She marched with the baggage train as the army advanced toward Samarkand. Around her, the machine never stopped. Newly captured men were pushed to the front lines, forced to absorb arrows, to die first. Human shields. The women were treated differently, not spared, but preserved. They cooked, they mended, they served, and at night, they were used. Some resisted, they didn't last long. Others adapted, because adaptation meant survival. Some bore children, children of Mongol soldiers, and even this was part of the system. Offspring meant expansion. New generations tied to the empire by blood. Warriors gained status through lineage. The empire grew not just through conquest, but through reproduction. Still, cracks began to show. Shah Muhammad's son, Jalal ad-Din, refused to surrender. He gathered what remained of his father's forces and launched guerrilla attacks against the Mongols, hit-and-run strikes. ambushes, disruption. For the first time, the machine slowed. It wasn't invincible. Resistance, however small, could force it to adapt. But the Mongols pushed on. The climax came at Urgench, the capital of the Khwarazmian Empire. The siege dragged on for months. Fighting spilled into the streets, house to house, block by block. The Mongols even diverted rivers to flood sections of the city. It became a nightmare. Stories spread through the ranks. Defenders boiled alive. Civilians drowned. Entire districts collapsing into mud and water. Tolui directed the assault with the same precision he had used at Bukhara. And when Urgench finally fell, the scale of death was staggering. Some accounts claim up to 1.2 million killed. Again, historians debate the numbers, but not the devastation. Bodies filled the Amu Darya River. The empire had reached its breaking point, not from defeat, but from exhaustion. Endless conquest had created endless enemies. Genghis Khan recognized it. The campaigns had stretched too far, too fast. He began recalling forces, consolidating control rather than expanding blindly. The machine didn't collapse, but it strained. In the aftermath, Bukhara lay in ruins, its population shattered. Genghis moved on, leaving behind governors to extract tribute and maintain order. Tolui returned east, his status elevated by the spoils he carried, including captives like Zara. In time, he would father sons who would go on to rule vast territories. The system continued, through blood, through inheritance, through memory. Shah Muhammad's empire was gone. His mother, Turkan Khatun, was captured, paraded, then exiled to Mongolia. But Bukhara didn't vanish, not completely. Under Mongol rule, it slowly revived. Trade returned. New populations were brought in, many deported from other conquered regions. It became part of what historians would later call the Pax Mongolica, a period of relative stability across the empire. But the cost was immense. Estimates suggest Central Asia's population dropped from around 25 million to under 10 million in the aftermath. A demographic collapse, entire lineages erased, and yet traces remained, even in the modern day. In the 2020s, archaeologists working in Bukhara uncovered layers of destruction, charred wood, arrowheads, mass graves. Teams from institutions like NYU's Institute for the Study of the Ancient World revealed evidence of both the city's prosperity and its fall. Coins buried in haste, pottery shattered mid-use, a sealed chamber discovered in 2024 filled with manuscripts, fragments of a lost intellectual world, skeletons bearing blade wounds, some female remains with bound wrists, silent testimony. Proof that the chronicles, as brutal as they seem, were not exaggerations. They were records, and they mattered. Because this story isn't just about the past. It's about systems of power, about how people can be reduced to numbers, to resources, to tools in a larger machine. From ancient empires to more modern conflicts, the pattern echoes: terror, exploitation, control, efficiency at a cost. But it also reminds us of something else: resistance. Even small acts, like those of Jalal ad-Din, can disrupt even the most powerful systems. Human beings bend, but they don't break completely. And in the end, the smoke clears, the ruins remain, but so do the stories. Bukhara rose again from ashes. Its people meant to disappear, endured, in memory, in culture, in fragments passed down through generations. Maybe Zara survived. Many like her did. And maybe years later, she told her story in whispers, to children, to anyone who would listen. Because stories outlast empires, They were meant to vanish, but they didn't. And now, they're here with you. If this story stayed with you,